And this, you have come to the session by the Eastern African Academy of Childhood Disability. So I'll start with some introduction, and I'll start with telling you what the theme is today. So for the 2024 Global Listening and Sharing session, we are focusing on families. The theme of the IACD's listening and sharing session is families who cares for them. And as you know, we all, in our practices, we do talk a lot about people's living with disability. And so this question came to our mind as we do deal with a lot of families, and we know that families go through different journeys, going through the understanding the care for a child with disability. So I would like to welcome you again, and please listen to this just few ground rules. So if you do not wish to be recorded or would like to remain anonymous, please keep your video off through the session and do not comment within the chat during the session, and you can rename yourself as a participant. But otherwise, we would love to see your faces, and please keep your cameras on if you are happy with being recorded, and you don't have to do anything if you are consenting to be recorded. The Eastern Africa Academy of Childhood Disability is a child of the International Alliance of Academies of Childhood Disability. And the EACD, it's a professional consortium of experts with vested interest in the diagnosis and treatment of childhood disability, and was established in 2015. And so just to tell you a little bit about our mission, we would like to promote research, education, and best practices in the field of childhood disability. And so the organization's membership comprises individuals hailing from Burundi, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, Sudan, South Sudan, Tanzania, and Uganda. And you will meet some of our families from these countries today. And if you would like to become a member, I will keep displaying the QR code to register, and please use the QR code for registration. I'll display it in a few seconds again. These are the EACD leadership, just to bring forth who's behind the EACD. So coming back to our session, the EACD is hosting today Families Journey, the support they wish they had, and we will be hearing from our esteemed panelists who you will meet soon. As I said, if you want to become a member of the EACD, please scan this QR code, and one of our members will also put in the link in the chat for you. So I'll go ahead and introduce our panelists for the title Family's Journey, the support they wish they had. So our first panelists are family with lived experience, a mother and a son, Dr. Sylvia Mora Muchabo Akinsku and her son Daniel Musyoka. I have permission to use first names from our panelists, so for ease of communication, I'll continue to use first names. So Sylvia is an honorary doctorate honor. She's an accomplished businesswoman, advocate, and philanthropist who has dedicated her career to promoting the rights and inclusion of neurodivergent individuals and persons with disabilities. She is founder of Andy Speaks for Special Needs Persons Africa, an organization that advocates for policy change, awareness, and inclusion of persons with neurodevelopmental disabilities and their caregivers in education, health, and social protection. Sylvia has received numerous awards for her outstanding work. She is 2023 Autism People's Hero Award winner in the UK, and she was named one of South Africa's magazine's top 20 influential women. She received Social Enterprise of the Year award by Women in Business. She has tons of nominations, including Women in Business Humanitarian of the Year Award, She Award, and Disability Inclusion Champion by Africa to Africa Mediation. In addition to her advocacy work, Sylvia is an experienced graphic designer and public relations professional with over 19 years of experience in graphic design, printing, and branding. Wow, what a multifaceted woman you are, Sylvia, and we are so honored to have you here. Sylvia is not here by herself, and we have another great advocate with her, her son Daniel Musioka. Daniel is a student in his final year. He is a sibling and caregiver. He is currently passionate about rugby and is in the Kenya under-18 rugby team. And he is a future advocate for persons with disabilities through sports. We are very honored to have you both. Thank you for coming. Our second mother, wonderful. Our second mother with lived experience is Pamela Titi Kakonge. Pamela is a dedicated advocate for children with disabilities and their families. She has made significant strides in the field of early childhood intervention and continues to work towards creating inclusive environments for children with diverse needs. Pamela holds a bachelor degree in law from Makerere University in Kampala. She did her master's in science in global health policy and management from Brandeis University in Massachusetts. Pamela is the founder and CEO of Tunaweza Children's Center, which provides essential services like early intervention program, therapy, and educational supports to children with disabilities. Pamela is an advocate with the Self Advocates and Families Initiative at the Joseph Kennedy Jr. Foundation in Washington, where she actively promotes the rights and well-being of children with disabilities and their families. It's such a big honor to have you here, Pamela. Thank you for coming. And our third mother with lived experience is Ellie Kitali. Ellie is a passionate advocate for improving the lives of individuals with Down syndrome and other neurodevelopmental disabilities in Tanzania. She was born and raised in Tanzania. By profession, she practices electronic and telecommunications engineering. Ellie's personal experience of raising a son with Down syndrome and autism sparked a deep passion to make a meaningful impact in the lives of people with Down syndrome and other neurodevelopmental disabilities in her community. Ellie is recognized both locally and internationally. She was featured on a BBC documentary, Don't Hide My Son, and has also been invited to speak at various conferences and events. Despite the challenges, Ellie remains committed to her mission of improving the lives of people with Down syndrome in Tanzania. Her work serves as an inspiration to many and is a testament to the power of one person's passion and dedication to make a difference in the world. Truly a difference in the world. Ellie, I look forward to hear and learn from you. Wow, we've got three strong mothers and a sibling. It's an honor again to have you all. I will stop screen sharing now so we can see our esteemed panelists. And I will be announcing how many minutes you got to respond to my questions, but most importantly, we will make sure to save some time for the audience to interact with you. So I would like to start by directing my first question to Sylvia and Daniel. So looking at the title, today's title, Family's Journey, the support they wish they had, what kind of things come to your mind, Sylvia and Daniel? Sylvia, you are muted.
All right, super. Thank you very much, Manish. Looking back in hindsight, I one of the things that I wish that we had was the general support, not only for by the immediate family, but the community at large. And the most immediate hit for me post diagnosis of my children, I have two boys on the spectrum with the multiple disabilities, and the doctors, the first delivery of your child has autism, and then the questions that followed was like being thrown in the deep sea, and you're trying to first understand. No one is holding your hand to make you get to understand what exactly it is, and you are supposed to just figure it out. Then all this jargon is being thrown at you, and what people forget, it is the first time you're hearing some of these things, like, oh, you need therapy, or it is convulsions, or it is autism, or we are having medications, you need to see this kind of doctor, you need to see this other person. And these are things that you have never been prepared for, and your heart, your mind, and there is that um, depression that comes after that as you're trying to figure out how you ended up there. Because as a mom, there is that you are wishing for a typical child, you have dreams and aspirations, and now all of a sudden the delivery is coming that all this might not happen, and there is no alternative of anyone to talk to. Because even in that instance, most of the times you will find, as a new mom, and in the first few years when your child is developing and your child is different from other kids, they're not meeting the milestones as they would. And I remember the hardest used to be when they started being hyper, when they started um, to react in circumstances that were not typical, and you just stopped going out, but nobody bothered to reach out to find out the why. Because at the end of the day, in the back of your mind, you're still processing what is happening to you, to your child, and all these things that are being thrown at you. You have to make amendments of your budgets to try to align. Even getting school was not typical. You go, you're being sent away, getting a nanny who would stay. Like, practically there was no support at that point, and all these people that were coming and going was just adding more pressure. And one thing that I wish was that people would take time to understand and put themselves in your shoe, because it is not something that you wished for. It happened, and you just have to deal with it. So multifaceted support from family and the community at large and the institutions that are around us, I think is one of the key things that I wish we had at the onset of discovering that the children had disabilities. Of course, the first one and the second one is a bit different. So for the second child, there was a lot of denial. And now everyone turns and looks at you like, is something wrong with you? Because, one child with a disability is something, and then two is a whole different ball game, because in the African culture we believe in so much of let me not even get into that discussion right now. It's a whole ball game on the cultural beliefs and the things that you get blamed for when everyone is looking at why you have not only one but two children with disabilities. So it's a very bitter pill to swallow, and it takes a toll on you as a parent, considering that you also have now, or in my case, I already had Daniel, so it was a bit tough. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. And well, I am very sorry to hear that it was a bitter pill to swallow, but I think a lot of families do share your experience, and thank you for sharing that. Daniel, do you have anything to add on that? Anything that comes to your mind when you hear our title?
I hope I'm audible.
Yes, we can hear you, Daniel. I'll give you the few seconds, Daniel, for you to have a more comfortable space. And meanwhile, I'll just proceed to Pamela. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Thank you very much, Salamesh. My journey was not so different from what Sylvia said. Maybe the only difference was the fact that I got to know at delivery that my daughter had brain damage at birth. So it was something that I had never heard of, but I had seen, because when I gave birth to her, she actually was pronounced dead because she did not have enough oxygen in her body. I happened to have been in maybe an advanced place hospital, which could quickly realize that there's a problem. And they tried to check her over and over again before they completely wrote her off and found a little pulse that gave them a chance to resuscitate her. So while they were doing the resuscitation, then they blew a few veins, and that caused the damage. And of course, when we met the doctors, they were open to tell me that she has had a brain damage on her left side of the brain, and this is going to affect her developmental her development. That means her speech will not be as normal. She will not be able to walk. She will not be able to see, because this old side, the left side of the brain, is what determines those things. But I was very lucky that they told me that, this is still a baby. If you try and do therapy, it was my first time to hear about therapy. Do therapy on the left side of the brain, or on the right side of the brain will take on the activities of the left side of the brain. And if you intensively do therapy, maybe she might be able to achieve some. It was a maybe, it wasn't like concrete. So, and that did not only break my heart, but just left me so completely confused. I understand that depression, the postpartum depression, was not very easy. And the fact that I was even visiting when I had the baby. So I didn't have that much help. And time had to come, and I had to go back to Uganda. And then everything started. We could not find therapists. We could not find anybody who could give us like the right till, because she had started getting seizures, and then she was also on anti-seizure medication. If we didn't give it to her, she would get the seizure. If we gave it to her, she would sleep all throughout, which was also not good for the child. So I would say the journey became more complicated as she grew, because she was not meeting her milestones. And eventually I had to go a little bit further than just Uganda. I traveled to Kenya, I traveled to South Africa, trying to find therapy, but it was very, very expensive, something that you could not manage. And the fact that the baby was not crying and the baby looked healthy, my family did not necessarily know what exactly is wrong with the baby. So it looked like they're not getting it. Maybe I'm even passing. Maybe I'm making a big deal out of this. But still, I needed to do something. So that's why I tried so hard until I got a therapist who was an occupational therapist from Kenya, but he could do many other things and was brought to Uganda. And I shared the costs with a mother who had a child with autism. So we worked out a garage space and started doing therapy on a daily basis. And but it wasn't easy. The cost was very high. We had to keep the therapist in Uganda. We had to be paid a certain amount of money that you can't explain. Then we try to get local therapists. You get one today, they leave, the maids are tired of carrying. It was so difficult. And of course, you still have to have another baby. And it was really hard until when I decided to move to the States, thinking that I would get help, and it did not help. Instead, it was worse, because you can only have therapy for an hour in any institution here and go back home. When you go back home, you have to take care of the kid yourself. You have another baby on your side. So the journey was quite complicated, extremely complicated, until I asked my mother to stay with my daughter, and I went back to Uganda. And and when I went back to Uganda, I decided to open up a center to have therapy. And this is when my daughter was 3 and she had had a seizure that made her lose everything that we had achieved. The walking went away, the speech disappeared. Everything that you can think of that we had achieved had gone to zero. So the only thing I had to do was to find a way of doing this. And how did I do this? I hope I still have some minutes.
Thank you so much, Pamela. We've run out a little bit, but it was
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
really didn't want to
so then
interrupt.
I had to open, that's how I had to open up a center and got help from the States, from different places. And from then it started running.
Okay, and we will talk a little bit more about that. I think our audience and including myself would love to hear how you overcome these challenges. And so that would be my next questions. Just before that, I would like to hear from Ellie. What would you say? I know we share a lot of common challenges among ourselves being families, but what would you say was the biggest challenge for your family? Ellie, you're muted still, Ellie.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Yes. Thank you for that question. But first of all, I always like to celebrate what my son has brought to our family. And he has really managed to bring us together as a family, and he has really managed to enlarge our community. So it's something I always wish to start, because most of the times, families, we always talk about the challenges, but I always love to celebrate the achievements first. And he is also a swimmer. My son, he's nonverbal. He was born with Down syndrome, and he's at the age of 3, he was diagnosed with autism. But right now, I can say he's an independent swimmer. So I'm really proud of who he is. But when I talk about what the most challenging thing that we faced, and probably are still facing, is navigating how to help him to live his potential through these challenging resources that we have. We don't have a well-structured system or supporting system that allow us to understand how to help our son. And it's basically what the previous speakers have said. And for me, that question takes me back to the day Chadwin was born. I was told, congratulations, you have a baby boy who has features of Down syndrome. And thereafter, no one told me anything on how to support this child. So you can imagine the depression of how to find the resources, how to support your child. So it was very challenging for me and for my family. But not only that, as I was trying to navigate to that, I came to realize that there are families who have children like ours, who have children like my son, who are facing more hardships. For instance, I met one mother who just said to me, I am abandoned because people believe I'm the reason who have made this child to be in this way, the condition that he has. So you can imagine, for a family who has resources, you have a supporting family, and it's not easy to navigate when you don't have any resources, no supporting system. What happened to this mother who is having this child, cannot engage in any economic activity, and has been left alone with no supporting system, not even from the family. So that just shows, I'm speaking the little part of the challenges that most of our communities face, but what others who have children like ours are facing more hardships. And some, when you talk about resources, just recently, there was a child, a 6-year-old girl, who was tied back on a tree because they couldn't know how to handle her because she had self-harming habits. So you can imagine a family, out of love, they actually choose to help that child by tying her like a criminal. But that doesn't end up there. What I believe is all this, as we navigate, what positives comes out of this is that our challenges that we see, we can always change them to opportunities, to growth. So in the challenges that our family we have faced has really changed us to continue to be positive, that to ensure that we can create a better world for our children. So as much as we talk about challenges, I always love to say, what are the opportunities that we can actually look at them and see how we can change together to make a better world for all our children.
Thank you so much, Ellie, and that is wonderful. Thank you so much for bringing forth the strengths and like the positive opportunities that we get through interacting with children with disability and having them in our family. Thank you for bringing that forth. And I will, in the future, also quote you. I love the way you said, "I want to celebrate my son because he brought us together." That's a great message. Thank you so much. So we have so far heard from the mothers and the challenges they passed through. I would like to ask Daniel, as a sibling, can you share a personal story about a time when your family needed support and how you navigated that situation? Along with that, if you can tell us if that challenge has changed you as a person and as a family. Daniel, I'm not sure if you have connections or if we still have you.
Hello? Yeah.
There is a lot of background noise behind you, Daniel.
I apologize for that.
No worries, Daniel. Just not to disturb our panelists, I will probably
Yeah.
redirect the question to Sylvia. Sylvia is Daniel's mother, and she can share with us your experience.
Thank you, Salamanesh.
And the panelists, please feel free to be on camera. You don't have to be off and on camera. You can keep yourselves on camera.
Thank you, Salamanesh. Okay, I will extract Daniel's sentiments from a podcast I had with him earlier when one day I was out of the country and one of the boys had a seizure and needed to be admitted. And one of the things that everyone says is that he's very mature, and some of the side effects of being in a special needs family is they sort of lose their childhood and have to grow up very, very fast. And this is seen by the level of responsibilities that now, as an elder brother, he had to take up, sacrifices. And I remember a question he asked me that it feels like they are favored compared to how I brought him up. But now, but he said he understood the why, but sometimes he still cannot take away the fact that the way he was raised, so strict with this has to be done, this has to be done, and them having a bit of a leeway in some of the mistakes they make that he made when he was their age. And as a family, you have to make such adjustments. And like I started with when I was doing the podcast, we were in hospital and he had taken up the responsibility of getting an Uber, rushing to hospital, ensuring the administration of the child is done, waiting for me to get the next flight to get back home, while at the same time taking that parental role. And you can imagine how much information this child has had to have to be able to admit the brother and stay overnight until the next day when I got there. Yeah. And you find that one of the other things that I fondly remember is a day I was sleeping in on a Saturday, and I overheard my son outside playing with his friends. And he was being invited over for a party, and he was like, and then one of the kids said, "We only want you to come, don't come with your brothers." And this is where the things we say and how we raise our children, they become part of our story, part of the advocates. I told them there is nothing wrong with my brothers. And so, welcome, one of them is here. There is nothing wrong with my brothers. You will get, if you get to know them and understand them, then you will know they are fine. Okay, all right. So,
Hi.
you're Andrew. Say Andrew. Say Andrew. so, so that yeah, that's the one who follows Daniel is called Andrew, and the youngest is called Bradley. So looking at these things and also being forced to stay with them, because of course one of the other things in the African cultures is our spouses, not all of them stay, most of them leave. And you can imagine, so he's having all these changes coming into his life. He lost his biological father, and now he's having siblings, because he was very young when all this was happening. He was around 4 5, and life was just changing in every facet, and he had to change schools to try and make things ends meet, because of course life becomes difficult. You have to make adjustments in the house. And one thing that I always told my son, and I tried to reassure him, that we will always be together, we will always be one. And one of the things that I remember, I noticed his schoolwork was going backwards when he was around that time. And every time I would come, why have you not done your homework? The answer would always be, I had to look after my brothers. All my brothers were doing this, and I had to sit in, because when they are two and they were very young, and could only afford one help, it was not easy. So it was affecting his life, and I had to take him into a boarding school to try and see that he could maintain his own life and also be an individual and not get swallowed into the responsibilities of being a sibling of a special and in a special needs family. So that's what I can think of top of mind from the conversations I've had with him, and also fighting other people when they're talking ill of their brothers. I love you too. When they're talking ill of their brothers, of his brothers, and having to step up. And I remember just a few months ago, we went for a rugby game. I went with the brothers, and they got so excited when they got onto the mic, and they wanted to grab the trophies. And he made a comment like, "Oh my God, now I have to face all the questions of what's wrong with your brothers." And that really hit me hard. I'm trying just, those are the moments that you snap out of it and you ask yourself, what exactly does he go through by virtue of just being a sibling? And of course, there is the behavior challenges and the challenges that the autistic brothers face in public, and the many questions that now he's had to be answering on their behalf when people are looking at them like, what's wrong with them? So yeah, in a nutshell, I hope that delivers the answer. Salamali. Over back
Thank
to
you so much, Sylvia. That is a very strong story, and it just tells us like how siblings unknowingly become the parents when they are sharing responsibilities, when they have a sibling with special needs, as you mentioned. And so that brings me forward to ask my next question, because so far we have heard that you've had so many challenges to navigate the system to support your family. And so I am wondering, how did you find a way to support your family? What worked for you? We would like to hear how you navigated this, and where are you now? So I'll start from Ellie.
Thank you. Yes. What worked for me first is I had to accept that I have a son who has a disability, condition that will only improve if I put time to it. And that happened when because I would share my story that I had to cancel myself, because as I said, no one came to tell me this is what you're supposed to do. So as most of our African cultures, we are Christians, so I went to pray, and I felt in my heart that a voice telling me, I've given you a gift and you're crying. And that's how I healed. So the first thing that I did was to heal. And once I accepted, it's when I started learning from other mothers. And that is where I came to realize others are having more hardship than what I actually thought my problems were not anything. So particularly that mother I shared who said, I'm all alone, and left she actually motivated me to start this organization. And my perception was first to sensitize the community, to create awareness so that we can be a more accepting community and more embracing this child, so that these children, so that they can be they can live their fullest potential. So that is the first way of how I addressed with the organization that we started. So I looked out for my friends and say, we have to do something in our capacity. So with Children's Hope Foundation, we're able to advocate, to continue to create awareness about Down syndrome and other neurodevelopmental disabilities. But we've even gone further to start a rehabilitation services, because as I said again, there are no resources. So if there's any way we can support this, we started that organization so that we can help children to access these therapies or these resources that will support them. And even going further, because I wished, for me, I always felt like if a doctor would have come and gave me a pamphlet and say, Down syndrome is just a person who has an extra chromosome, would have brought a completely, probably different acceptance for me, for when I was having my child. But no one came with follow-up, no guidance support. But right now, as we speak, things have changed. We are working with Global Down Syndrome Foundation, and there will be resources in Swahili that will be accessible for all parents. So you can see, in a way of navigating our challenges is just facing them and trying to change. And on top of that, we have started support groups for mothers. Since 2019, I've been connecting with families who have children with neurodevelopmental disabilities. And this is a life changer for us who don't have a supporting system, because you will learn from other parents how to care for your children. You will learn where are these scarcity resources that we have, where to find them. So I encourage parents to find supporting system, because they truly are a game changer when raising our children, because you will have information there. Once you ask a question, people will give you the direction. So we have these support groups. There are support groups for autism, for cerebral palsy, for Down syndrome, and there are support groups for mothers. So we managed to form for mothers, and we have a support group, and we have a workshop that we're working with mothers. We are empowering them with economic activities, because as I said again, most of them, they have their children at home. They cannot engage in an economic activity. So how can we empower them to be able to engage in an economic activity so that they can care? Because our children are living in such an expensive, we have to have resources to support them to reach their fullest potential. So that is one of the things that we actually have emphasized on doing in our organization. And apart from that, we are building a community of practice, because I do believe that if we want to see a change, we need everyone. That's why I'm here today. I'm engaging with everyone here. I'm here to learn, but I'm also connecting with every person that I meet, just to learn how we can collectively change those challenges that we meet, not only from neurodevelopmental disabilities, but every other aspects of life. Because when you are going to education system, our children are not being accepted, but how can we work together to help these children be accepted, even if there are children with cerebral palsy? Because for one, I've learned that a lot of children who have cerebral palsy are not accepted in our system at all, because they still can't support themselves. But how can we do it as a community? And I'm very positive, because so far our success, we have been here for 7 years. And the reason of our success is because Tanzania has got the best community in terms of supporting each other. So once they understand, it's an empathetic community, it's not a sympathetic community. They will join with you, they will work with you, they will share their resources, whatever small amount of thing they have, we work together to achieve that. And that was actually has made it. That's what I'm saying. For me, today, probably if you had asked me on this call 10 years ago, would have been a different. But today, I find this, having a child with neurodevelopmental disability, truly changed me, and it continues to, how can I say, it continued to help me to connect with the community that are change makers. So it's a celebration for me, rather than just what can I say? It's not like a sad thing that to have a child with disability.
Thank you so much, Ella. And I would want you to say that a million times. And I am very happy to hear your words. And you've really highlighted how communities can support each other and how that can make a big difference in a community. Pamela, can you share us your where you are now and your experience as well?
Okay. Thank you very much, Ellie and Sylvia. That was really encouraging. For sure, the first thing I did was acceptance. And when you accept, you start actually dealing with the things the right way. Another thing is that on top of acceptance is actually talking about it. So one of the things that really made a difference as we had started was being open about the problem you have and trying to address it. It was through my bubbly mouth and talking about whatever happened to my child that led me to a lady I met on a train. And this lady on the train told me, why are you struggling with going around? Can't you go back home and do this for your community? And like Ellie said, there's no good thing like a community. I started up with a parent therapy fellowship where we would meet and talk about these challenges and try to see how best we can help our children. And every time a parent talked, even if they never had a solution instantly, they felt better and went back home and did the right thing. So opening my organization was the best thing that ever happened. And one of the most important things I learned from the beginning was that early identification and early intervention makes a big difference. If you get to know that the child needs help, do not hesitate. In our culture or in our language, we have a saying that when you want when you bend a stick that is still young or a flower, you will direct it to the way it should go. Like if you have a creeping plant and you put this plant along a thread or something, it will definitely grow then. But if it's already grown and dry, when you try to do that, it will break. So it's the same thing with these kids. The earlier you actually get them to do these norms, because therapy in layman language is training them to do something, training them to eat so much, eat less, use the bathroom. So all those trainings, if you start them early, it becomes the norm of the children and they will see good results. Because I did that. My daughter was able to join mainstream. She spent about 5 years in the therapy center where we were doing more occupational, physio, and speech. And eventually, she moved to school. She could not cope with the normal children, if I may use that word, in terms of their academics and intellectual abilities. But she still learned. She still learned. She learned the basic things. So to me, I think the two things that made a difference in my life and many other people that I am seeing I've so far seen since I started about 5,000 kids. And out of those 5,000, I want to assure you that 60% of them have enrolled in other community activities. Some are in schools, some have joined mainstream schools because it was very hard for them to join at the time they were not getting services. Others are in the community doing some responsibility, some work that they can do on their own. And this has also helped parents opening the center to have the kids there. The parents had an opportunity to go and engage in other economic activities so that they can come back and take care of their children. Like Ellie said, it's very expensive. Therapy is the most expensive treatment that one can be on, but you can still do the basic home therapy if you start early, and you will see your results. You will see your results. Today, my daughter is 17 years old. She's studying to become a special needs teacher. And all this was only possible because we ruled out the stereotype of like the child has to go to school, she has to do mathematics, English, and all that. No, let her do what she can do. They identified that she liked children, working with children, and that is all she has studied all her life. And now she's about to graduate to be a teacher. It's a celebration, like Ellie said. And all this comes to when you accept and don't compare your child to other kids saying that, oh, my child has to be a doctor, and you put them under a lot of stress to go to school to study. No, you can even teach them from home as long as you do the basics and as long as you do it early. Early identification, early intervention are the only things that can lead to a successful involvement of a child in all communities. So I think involving the community and talking to them about this has been one of the greatest achievements I've made. And the kids have been brought to the early intervention program at my center, and we have seen them flourish even 5-10 years from now. And I can't thank the community that I work with, because they are the ones that we train. We've trained mothers, we've trained caregivers, we get therapists, we've trained them. I have invested a lot in the training of the community so that they can be able to go back home and do this early enough after they have accepted their condition.
Thank you so much, Pamela. You've really highlighted, and I can see like a commenting when you talk, and when Eli was also earlier talking, that I think that the biggest difference that would have made was if there was somebody there to listen to you, to explain things to you, or to help and support, take you through that journey that you had to navigate all by yourself. But it really is inspiring to hear all your successes. So I see Daniel here. I think he is in a more stable environment now. So I'll take away the final chance from Sylvia and Daniel. I would love to hear you highlight the successes. So I know we've heard a lot how you support your brothers and how you support your mother and family as a whole. And so I'll just give you 2 minutes to highlight your success, and we'll open it to the audience, like to accept 1 or 2 questions. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I'd like to apologize for the challenges. For what I'd say as a brother to children with autism, one is ADHD, one is autism. It's kind of challenging sometimes to grow up having to focus on them a lot more than you have to focus on yourself, because you have to make a lot of sacrifices so that you can be able to be there for them at all times. But what I'd say is a success to myself for being there for them is that it helps you grow personally, because I would say my attitude towards people and general opinion on things would be very different if it was not for my brothers. They've helped me shape myself into the person I am today, and to have the courage to actually stand against people's opinions and talk about something that you truly believe in is something that I've only been able to do because of my brothers. And it's also very encouraging to see how much it's changed from past years. It wasn't easy to like explain to someone what autism is, but at least now with the times right now, there's been some awareness, and you hear the word autism, you like, I've heard that somewhere. Then just need to explain about it and provide more information. But the discrimination, it's greatly reduced, since after you sit someone down, take them through, they see the good parts of it, see the bad parts of it, and see what are the challenges, and they get to see your view from your point of view, and bear with you. So yeah, it's been quite a journey, but I'm thankful.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Daniel. That is very inspiring to hear, and how your brothers have changed you as a person, and how you all have done this as a family. And I'm really happy to hear from all our families here today about their journey and what they wish had been different. So I'll open the floor to the audiences. Please feel free to interact with our panelists, ask your questions. You can use the hand function to raise your hands if you wish, or you can put questions in the chat as well.
Salmanish, there was a question in the audience. Do you mind if I take it about medication?
Oh, please do. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So the medication has been one of the greatest. Sorry, it's raining here in Kenya and it's very loud. So one of the greatest things is the medications element. I remember that was the first thing I went through, the seizures before even the autism and everything else. And just navigating and understanding is never easy. And the changes and the reactions and the way the doctors don't involve you to elaborate what exactly we're anticipating, building expectations. And the affordability is such a big deal. The person has asked how we navigated. Personally, it made sacrifices. You skip a meal, you cut down the expenses, you give up some of the luxuries in life. It becomes a key element. You see the way everyone talks about food, shelter, clothing. For us, our priority will be food, shelter, medication. That if there is a plus, then the food element will come. The clothing element. So sacrifices had to be done back in those days. And then the other thing is learning from this, it made it that now we became the voices to highlight the challenges that we are going through. And that is how I formed Andy Speaks. And one of the programs that I did, especially during COVID, was a drive for medical support for parents. Because remember, at that time, people are not able to go to school, to go out, not even to the hospitals. So we sacrificed, fundraised, and delivered this key medication. Yes, Baba. 10 minutes. 2 minutes. So we were able to supply the medication to the families at home and put it out in media and advocate. And by virtue of the advocacy and all the changes we've tried to make in running programs and highlighting the challenges as families of the neurodivergent and those with developmental disabilities, people were able to understand. And just as Ellie said, some of the positives of the challenges are the ones that are bringing change now. By virtue of sitting in such forums and raising advocacy, by virtue of sitting at the National Council and advising the board that there is this forgotten category of persons with disabilities, and these are the needs that we need to prioritize. And what I've been championing for is equity. And now we can be able to see that here in Kenya, under our social protection, we are getting support from government that the anticonvulsant medication is actually being provided for. It's something that has just been rolled out. So it takes a lot of advocacy and raising your voices so that the government can come through and support you as parents and as a community of persons with disability, because it is a key mandate. If they're doing it for persons with HIV, if they're doing it for persons with TB, then why not our children who need it to stay alive, and it's not their fault that they are where they are? Yes.
That is a very strong word. Thank you, Sylvia. And yeah, you've highlighted how our advocacy could force the policy to change. And thank you so much for that. I don't see any questions from the audience. So Pamela, why don't you add a little bit on that point? Because I would like to hear what advice would you give to families currently struggling to find the support they need in a resource-limited setup?
Definitely, resources are such a big deal. But what I would advise families to do is, I am sure in most communities we have what we call like health centers, like grade 1, grade 2, like nearest village centers. I would encourage mothers, if you're pregnant, don't miss any antenatal, because in most cases this antenatal is given for free at these medical centers. And when you have a baby, and you don't miss the first 6 visits, because that's when the doctor can easily identify. They could see the face, could be a Down syndrome face, or they could even see that the child is not meeting the actual milestones. And when you get to know that, Number one, ask if you can find places where they have like therapists. I'll give an example of a mother that I know. When a mother had a child with a big head, which is hydrocephalus, she found out that the child had that problem. She at birth, because she kept saying the head of the child is not proportional to the body. And of course, then went to see a doctor at about 3 months, and the doctor told her this is the problem. So in most communities, I'll speak for Uganda, which I know is there. Every village has a local center, which they will find out. And if you know that, if you find out that your child has this problem, now take another level and find out what can be done for them. Now, most parents delay to follow up, delay to find out. Even when they find out, they don't try to go further to see what can be done for this. And some of these resources are free on village levels, if I may use that. But those who are in town can even maybe have access to internet and read about it. But most parents, even the educated ones, delay. They keep thinking, oh, the child will talk. Oh, the child will talk. My child started talking later. Oh, my child started talking at 6 years. Or maybe let me just put them into school, they will catch up. No, if you find that the child has not met the normal milestones, please seek help as soon as possible. I have seen parents who cannot afford therapy, but have used basic things at home to make a difference, which would be like, I'll give an example, a child with cerebral palsy, which maybe not be so much, who is drooling. You could only need a straw to feed her with brown porridge, like thick porridge or yogurt, if I may use that as an example. When the child is pulling in, the child is exercising the muscles of the mouth and the tongue. I'm using this as an example. And this can be done home. You don't have to drive 16 kilometers to go and find a person to train those muscles. Some things, there are pamphlets around that you can get. That is what we use. I used to get pamphlets, offload, download them, share them with parents, and therapy
See
was
you on
being
Monday,
done at
guys.
home. So this is how you manage. There's also a book that was written by, I think, a Kenyan. It's called Disabilities in Villages. It has almost all the therapy things that you need to do from home. So if you do not miss the first visits to the doctor, you will most probably not miss the condition early. But if you don't see a doctor for the first 1 year because your child is well, we have this tendency, he's not sick, there's nothing happening, he's a normal baby, and you don't go to do those milestone checks, you will miss the problem. But if you actually do those milestone checks, regardless of being sick, just take the child at, I think it is 6 weeks, 9 weeks, 12 weeks, keep seeing the doctor. That is when you identify the problem early. For autism, I've realized that most people will get to know maybe at 2 years, but you can still find out by the time the child is between 15 to 24 months. Because if you're feeding a child and especially when you're breastfeeding and the child is not giving you a good eye contact, that could be a sign. There's simple things like those that you have to look out, that I always encourage parents to do. So you find the eye contact is not there. You will find that the babbling is not there. You find even when you call their names, because at 9 months, you should be able to say baby, baby, and the child kind of responds. But if you do all that and the child is not responding, it's already a sign. So, and you can only know this if you actually keep seeing
I'm
your
sorry,
milestones.
Pamela. I'm going to have to interrupt you because
No
people
problem.
will run over
Okay.
to other sessions.
Okay.
It is the 24-hour session is running.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your strong stories and showing us how, as a family, as a community, we can really change the world. And thank you for sharing your journey with us. We'll close up this session with that and invite everyone to please go ahead to the website of the IACD and join other sessions as each hour is running. Thank you so much. Have a good day, everyone.
Peter.